Hello, Power Sisters, and welcome to day 4 of the Redefining Her Success Power Virtual Summit with Dr. Anita M. Jackson and the executive team of Power Her Success Alliance. I am thrilled to be your co-host for day 4. We have 7 days. I hope you've been joining in the last 3 days, and we have even more to come. 25 women, and they're sharing their hearts, they're sharing their tips, their experience, their life, personal situations to empower you to live life, more importantly, to live your life the best you can and to redefine it on what matters most to you. And so I have Jenna Martin here today with us, and I call her the gentle powerhouse.
Oh,
She is
thank
a
you.
powerhouse in her own right, and she is the example of us having real conversations with real women to empower you to live your best life. And so I encourage you, sit back, relax, but better yet, engage with us in the chat. And if you have questions, then put those in the chat and we will get to you as we are having this conversation. But Jenna I was so impressed with her the very first time I saw her on social media. She was introduced to me by Dr. Jackson, Dr. Anita Jackson, and she has a slogan, and it is to create life based from your heart. And I think in today's world, especially, we can be so even robotic that we forget to drop into our heart space and lean into that. And we are powerful as women when we can lean into our heart and lead from our heart. And so Jenna is just a beautiful example of somebody who encourages her clients, the women that she serves, to lean more into your healthy boundaries. This is a big thing that she talks about, which is so vital for us, to trust yourself, trust your intuition, follow your gut, follow your true north, so to speak. And so Jenna, welcome today. And can you just expand a little bit more on your bio and how you serve women?
Sure. Well, you did it beautifully. But definitely, so in today's day, things tend to be really busy. Like you said, we get more either robotic and we just go through the system of the day, or we listen more to other people than ourselves, or social media is filled with so many different ideas too. We have a lot of things tugging us in different directions. And a lot of us with big hearts are people pleasers. So we get even further tugged than probably the average person because somehow we've been able to keep our hearts fairly open. But within that comes a lot of fatigue, a lot of stress, a lot of all the things. So it's really good to come back to your heart and learn healthy boundaries. It's so important so that you can move through a very busy life more centered. You may still have similar problems. You may be able to take steps away from those problems, but you deal with them so much more easily because you
Yeah.
know yourself, you know your boundaries, and you can set them with love and not out of fear, and it changes everything.
Nice. That's beautiful. Now you help women not only personally but on the professionally.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that a little bit more on some of the things that you do and how you help women in a corporate setting or in a personal entrepreneurial setting. And one of the things I know that you're really passionate about helping women accomplish some big things in their life. And you were sharing with me when we were, in a previous conversation about being able to come back to yourself. So just expand on that a little bit more on how, as women, we can trust ourselves because you said it beautifully. We can become people pleasers, and
Um,
that's not a bad thing
if you have boundaries.
with boundaries. And of course, and it's not a bad thing if it's done in a healthy way. So coming back to yourself always is not a selfish thing. So explain to our listeners what that means and what kinds of things you can do. you know.
Yeah, definitely. So the best way to visualize it, to really hit it home, and you've heard this before, is to give with the cup full and not half empty. So we think that if we don't give, we're not being loving. And then it hits on our self-worth issues because we consider ourselves loving people, and that is a good identity to have so long as you're also refilling your own love cup. So to do that, I've had fairly big stressful moments of my life where everything fell apart. It can be as simple as coming back to yourself for the 5 minutes you have in your car
Yes.
before work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or in the bathroom, or, on different breaks throughout the day, right before you go to bed. When you start to put yourself first in a loving way, your life starts, you make different decisions that are healthier for you. And then you start to make bigger decisions that are healthier for you when you're coming from that heart space and essence. And your life starts to reconstruct around you in a healthier way. And it's beautiful.
And so many women, I think, feel like they have to give and give and give because it's an identity of who they are, and filling the roles of all of these other people's expectations from them of themselves. And that's where we can get into, the challenges of burnout, fatigue, and then even making other choices that wouldn't be healthy. This we're talking today about redefining her lifestyle, and lifestyle is so much more than, decorating your home. Some people think, oh, lifestyle, it's how I go on vacation or how I decorate my home, or it's kind of all encompassing, because how we decorate our home usually is a reflection of us, and how we allow people in our lives, that's a reflection of us. So when you're talking about coming back to yourself, and having those boundaries, that's really important. And particularly if somebody is in a corporate setting and they're juggling, being gone from their home for a big chunk of their day. So how talk about boundaries and how we can set the boundaries without, I'm not going to say the bad word, but set the boundaries so that people still think, oh, she's a nice person, and you can still please people, but you can still have boundaries so that ultimately it's beneficial for yourself and healthier for yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. So as you start to refill your own love cup by taking those 5 minute moments, it can turn into salt baths, which can turn into feeling better, in which case you start to see people who are crossing your boundaries better because you're feeling better. And there's a difference in my mind, and this isn't probably true to definition, but between being nice and kind. So to me, in my head, someone who's nice just gives and gives. Someone who is kind has boundaries and extends when they can. So one of the best things I figured out, and that works so well in the corporate world, is to come back to yourself. And if they say, I need you to do this, this, and this, you come back to them with what you can do. You don't have to say no. You can say, oh, I understand that. Yeah. Under the list of responsibilities that you need support with, I can help with this part here. And you give from that cup that's full. You're not half empty because you're helping so many people and then trying to include them as well. That's very stressful.
That is such a good communication tool, because usually when people hear no, then they immediately, make a judgment, or, have their own, if they are having unhealthy, conversations,
Yeah.
internal conversations, that coming from a place of which you can do, it kind of diffuses anything before it is even lit.
Yes.
And I love that. So coming back to, or say it again for the viewers, coming with what you can do.
Yeah, so someone comes at you, a family member, I need help. Oh my gosh, this happened. In corporate, oh my gosh, we're behind the deadline. Can you take this on? There's the expectation that you will because of who you are and your character. But if you watch a lot of leaders, they'll just tell you what they can do, and they'll set you off and empower you and even give you resources for what to do with whatever's remaining. So just say, okay, I can't do this, here's resources for the rest of it.
That
And you
is
say,
so
quickly
healthy.
and kindly. Yeah. And then
Oh,
you feel good about yourself too. The people pleaser is also feeling taken care of.
Right. And especially because, if we're in if we're not in a healthy mindset and we feel like our identity, like I mentioned earlier, is tied to all of these roles, and if you can say yes and yes and yes, and trust me, I'm a yes girl. I love to say yes to adventure, anything fun, anything exciting, anything that's going to add value to my life. I'm a yes all the way when it goes in line with my core values. But I guess that's the thing, when it's not in line with your core values, if you know what those are in the first place, then it's
Yeah.
easier to identify. And would you find that when you started having to do that, was it hard at first
It
to
is.
set those boundaries?
Yeah, because your inner dependence on it for feeling good about yourself is like, what's happening? That's not normal for me. But then if you just reaffirm to yourself or heal that low self-worth and again go back to filling that love cup, and even maybe getting creative about other solutions that could be of support when you have time, it's powerful. And then people only come to you when they really need something because they respect your time, because they know that you respect your time. So things change, but people will look at you sideways a little bit at first.
Mhm.
But if you do it
When
with
it's
love,
new
yeah, when it's
behavior, right?
new. Yeah, but you can convey the importance of them to you. So you can let them know how important they are while you're setting the boundary, or why what they are doing is so important to show care. So it doesn't have to be a complete dismissal. I can only do this. You can say, I can see, that you have a lot on your plate, and share why it's important, and then give them the resource, and they'll feel really good. And you'll get less like sideways eyes
Right.
in that scenario.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
gossip about you. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
can see how that will just really, I mean, even probably instill confidence, instill, because it's kind of like it's like trying to have a tough conversation that you don't want to have. We usually don't like conflicting conversations, and when you do and you get through it, you're like, wow, yay me.
Yay, I did it.
And
Yeah.
celebrating, yeah, celebrating keeping that boundary. And it's so important, as you said, then the phrase, we train people how to treat us.
Yes.
That
Yes.
I think is goes right along in that, training session, even though we're not specifically saying, okay, you're in a training session, but what we allow people to do to us and ask of us, and what we comply with is, we're responsible for that. And
Yes.
just like we're responsible for setting the boundaries. So that's really good. I love that 5-minute moment. And um, you also talk a lot about creativity and having creativity in your life as a way to help bring wellness, overall health and wellness to your life. Now, if I were to ask 10 people, give me a definition of creativity, some person might say, oh, it's being able to write a really pretty poem, or it's putting a flower bouquet together, or there could be a lot of definitions for creativity. So tell our viewers how you define creativity as it relates to your overall health and wellness in creating a life that is what you define it as.
Yeah, thank you. So to me, creativity, wherever you are, at home or in the corporate world, is finding creative ways to come back to self so that you're feeling more authentic. Because in a world where that's not heavily supported, sometimes, a lot of people will say, be more authentic and you'll feel better. And it's like, well, I haven't been authentic for years. How do I do that? So creativity can come in a lot of forms. It can start off by having little things, whether it is painting, and that's a little self-expression that you could, just start to open to yourself. But it can go as far as to, if you have huge problems in the corporate world and there's tons of divisions and tons of different people with different things that are important to them, getting creative about solutions, because everyone has needs. So if you can create a solution that empowers everyone and hits their need, and so everyone's getting what they want. A lot of people, when there's a big problem in the corporate world, there's either a solution or no solution,
Right.
sometimes
Yeah,
depending on where
it's
you
cut
are.
and dry.
Cut and dry. Yeah, we boom, we're going, or boom, we're at a standstill. And in that case, employees tend to shut down because you don't feel empowered, and your voice, a lot of the times in a lot of companies, I know it's changing slowly, but their voices aren't being heard. So if you're leading a team under, a CEO and you're stuck in the middle, it can be a really tough place depending on what's going on. So what I like to do is get creative, put everyone on a piece of paper, put what their biggest need is and what they want. Write down the connections of everything going on and see if you can just get like let loose as if there were no rules, and see if there's a creative solution there. And in letting loose and coming home to yourself and addressing each person's what's important to them, oftentimes you can come up with a very creative solution that gets everyone's needs met. And the CEO who's usually not on board, sometimes, again,
Yeah.
depending on where you work, there's beautiful, amazing CEOs as well. But in terms of today's conversation, oftentimes when you're coming from authenticity and seeing their authenticity, it's a different resonance. It's your essence. It's addressing their truth, their essence. And oftentimes you'll see if they don't say yes the first time, you've planted a seed and
Yeah.
things start to change over time. So
You
it's
can
really
get that
powerful.
buy-in a little bit easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So it's,
that's so important is taking just a few minutes, taking that time to, like you said, write it all out because usually just starting to let your, pen to paper flow, the ideas might come that, so many times, well, I've done it this way before, I've done it this way, and, I've gotten a result that way. But sometimes, that whole definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, doing something different or offering a suggestion or uh, three suggestions and getting their buy-in and creating that flow in conversation. And this is so beautiful to do in your family setting. If you're working with volunteers, if you have a team that works for you, under you, whether you're in the corporate setting or an entrepreneur,
yeah.
because it's so much more fun in life when
Yeah,
when
right.
people get along and they're both and everybody you both or everybody is excited to be on the same path.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. It all starts to shift those 5 minute moments with yourself, starting to set healthy boundaries. It doesn't have to be, unless you feel drawn to it, this huge leap of faith or this huge change. It can be little subtle differences every day that
Yep.
have huge impacts down the line.
Um, you mentioned a lot about boundaries, and I think that is so critical for women to know that it's okay to set these boundaries and it's not being selfish, it's not being rude. Obviously, the delivery method could convey a different tone, but boundaries, especially when we're caring for other people in our life, whether it's family members just on the day to day, whether it's team members at work or in our roles as career women. But you have taken on a role with caring for your father, who he has Parkinson's. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, gosh, I can imagine there's probably a lot of boundaries and a lot of we talk about this a little bit with one of the other speakers and how we're kind of at the age, some of us coming into age of needing to take care of parents that need some help,
Yeah.
whether it's for an illness or just because they're elderly and they need to be with other people. And so I can't even imagine what that must be like. I took care of my mom in her final days, but it was about a 10-month time span. And how long have you been caring for your father,
Yeah,
helping take care?
so part of well, so it's a good conversation to have. So he is in a nursing home now. It's beautiful. He's well taken care of. we tried to keep him home. So I took care of him full time at that point for about 2 to 3 years.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, and it was a lot because, I think we have these rosy visions of taking care of our parents because we love them in our older age. If, especially if you had like a good connection with them growing up, you have this vision of what it's going to be like. But you don't anticipate that as, people get older, they're not totally themselves anymore, and they don't see the bigger picture. They have more tunnel vision on immediate needs. So it gets really stressful
Yeah.
wanting, again, the people pleaser, wanting to take such good care of them. But if you did what they wanted, your whole life would be, turned
Yeah.
upside down.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of like having to learn a new dance, every 5 minutes. And
yes, yes.
that
And
can
then
be
you,
very taxing on
yes.
your mental well-being, physical
Yeah,
well-being as well,
yes,
emotional,
yeah.
all
So
of it.
all of it. So with Parkinson's, he could only nod for, once it got to a certain point, and now he can only blink. So he needs help doing everything we do every day, from taking a shower. His nails grow really fast, his hair grows fast, he needs a shave, not to mention all the other medical needs. So it got very extensive, very fast, to the point where the medical became out of our hands. And that's when I set my boundaries first, but my mom also came in and said, I agree with you. This is beyond us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that you mentioned, I love the phrase, is to become a loving broken record
Yes.
as it relates to boundaries, because when, especially when you're new to setting boundaries and people, it's a completely different, they're like, "Oh, well, who are you?" They don't know how to relate anymore because you're not the person that's, jumping when they say, let's do this, I need this. And so explain that, because I think that's a really good nugget that somebody could take away today, thinking, okay, when I'm going to set my boundary, I'm going to make this, I'm going to set the boundary the first time, and then somebody may not receive it, but yet
Yes.
you have to, like a broken record, but in a loving way.
In
So,
a loving way. So, yeah, with older age comes some memory loss, even dementia. So, they may, or again, not even just seeing the whole picture, and being used to you being their kid who used to run around and do, what they needed. They've lost sight of you being an adult, having your own responsibilities, those types of things. So, one thing I like to do that I did with him, and again, he's the most brilliant, beautiful dad, and person on this planet. He treated the CEO the same as, and knew their kids just as well as the person who took out the trash at the end of the night. He's just beautiful. So I wanted to do so much for him, but he couldn't see that in caring for him, I wasn't able to save for retirement. Things weren't working. Stuff was starting to all fall apart. And it's really hard when you love people to not do what they want when they've been such a great person. So what I had to come to was the loving broken record. So I used to get really upset that he couldn't see the whole picture. And then I was exhausted, drained, tired, frustrated. I was like, I don't want to live my last years with him
yeah,
feeling angry and resentful. So I came to the loving broken record, where when he needed something that was beyond what I could provide, I would share the big picture again, share why he's important to me again, and why I just couldn't do that today, but here's what I can do. So it's the same thing, and you can use this anywhere.
yeah. And I think too, it's when you're talking about being creative, different things that are going to empower yourself to have your own authenticity, when you do have to be this loving broken record and you are doing it in a loving way and somebody doesn't receive it that way, it's not our responsibility. When we know that our intention is pure and we're going, we're doing the best we can for others, for ourselves, for our families, for our jobs. And, we can only do so much. And I think a lot of times women will take a lot of that on our shoulders, everybody else's, unrealistic expectations, I guess we can call it that. And
Yeah,
we we get to just let it go
yeah.
and just,
So
yeah, Go ahead.
Yeah, so it looks like, Dad, I know you want me to do this. The new caregiver coming in, she knows exactly what to do. We made sure you're in good hands. I have to save for retirement, which is really big for me, so that when I'm your age, I can also be supported in this way. And I know it's hard. I know it's rough. Just know we love you and I'll see you tonight, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very
Yeah.
straightforward, very like as empowering as you can be. You're not gaslighting them, you're addressing the emotions because it's real for them, even if
Right.
they can't see the bigger picture, it's real. So
Exactly.
once I figured that out, then I could say that statement without getting worked up, the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as a caregiver, I mean, I work with people that are in this kind of a transition too, is you do need to care for yourself, especially when you're caring for somebody else, because it's very easy to be completely drained. And I mean, that was your world. That was your 100% world. And so, bravo to you for making having those courageous conversations and taking
Yeah.
the brave step that, you're looking long term and doing the things that you can do for him at the same time within what's realistic.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle, a challenge, and a blessing to be able to care for parents, because especially when they're, if there's been a good relationship in the past, that I think makes it all the much easier. But because when all is said and done, we want to feel good about, what we did for these people who did for us, whether we liked how they did it or not, while we were growing up. So,
Exactly.
yeah, so
Yes.
that's
I'm
amazing.
sorry.
No, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that's just amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And because it affects your self-worth, because you're the people pleaser, you have to go back to those 5-minute moments and re-empower yourself. I'm helping my dad beyond what the normal person would do. I
Mhm.
can't do everything. I can't be, at that age without my own, my own support and financial stability. So I'm okay. I'm doing a great job. So you
Yeah.
just gotta
And
keep
celebrating those
reaffirming.
wins. Yeah,
Yeah,
celebrating who
yeah.
you are and knowing that is part of who you are. You are caring, you are loving, and whether this is in a work environment or a family environment,
Yeah,
you get to stand in that authority and
yeah. And because of that, now I'm like financially successful and he's in a beautiful home. And I visit him. And so even though it's maybe not what I wanted at the time, it's stability and like a greater sense of love and being able to slow down because I took those actions
yeah.
towards making sure everyone was okay, not just the person in front of me,
Yeah.
asking.
I call those kinds of situations giving up the good for the great.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So, particularly when we're talking about health and wellness, and all things lining up and transformation in your own life, and you making some, courageous steps and some decisions, you've had massive success in some things that you've done, on the business side of your life. And this definitely comes from having healthy boundaries, knowing who you are, knowing your value, knowing your worth. What do you think has been your greatest attribute
Yeah.
within that has allowed you to create so many successful results for women, and
I
for yourself and for others?
for others. Yeah. So again, coming back to creativity,
Yeah.
authenticity, and then with that comes discernment. So that's an open, free-flowing space, but those healthy boundaries have to come in, and that comes in with discernment. And the biggest thing about discernment is, like you said, giving up, what was it, the good for the great?
Mhm.
Yeah, so do
Yep.
I have time for this? No, I don't. Okay, I'll take these actions. Yes, I do. I'll take these actions. And it just really helped me take 5 minutes. I literally had 5 minutes sometimes to build what I built.
Wow.
So I'm just so grateful to have followed those steps. And it's just important. And with discernment, you'll know your truth. If you go back to your essence, and you say two statements of what you uh, think you should do or want want to do, if you look in a mirror and say it to the mirror, feel it within your body will tell you
Mhm.
exactly what you need to do. You'll see it. You'll either be big and expansive and feel beautiful, maybe a little scared because it's something new, or just like, oh my gosh, this is, for me, it's in my tummy. If something's not right, I feel a wall and it's
Yeah.
huge. But it takes courage to listen.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so important to listen to our body. Our bodies will tell us so much more than a doctor can tell us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that. That's something that every woman can take tonight. If they're faced with if it's a decision that they need to make. What did you said there were two things. What can I do? What should I? What did you say? Because I don't like to use the
Yeah.
word should, but what did you say? Look in the
Yeah.
mirror and ask yourself the question.
Yes. Look in the mirror and ask yourself the question, because sometimes our boundaries are so permeable
Mhm.
that we don't really know what's us versus other people. Yeah.
Yes. So good.
So,
And if you
yeah.
find yourself when you're thinking about that and answering it, asking yourself the question, then answering it in the mirror, and if you're standing up proud and confident, you're like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
anything like that, there's your answer.
There's
So
your answer.
good. So good.
Yeah.
That is like one thing we can do every single day. So we have decisions to make every single day. You know,
Yep.
somebody asks us to do something every single day.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
So,
gosh, so good. I know Jenna has so much more for us, and we're so glad that you viewers are listening here today. I hope you're engaging in the conversation. And if you want to up level to the VIP status, you'll get all of the speakers, extra information that they have for you. You can connect even further with them. Jenna has created amazing results in her as an entrepreneur. Um, and again, she made a tough decision on what to do, and she literally had 5 minutes sometimes to make decisions, and she was able to do that on these short stints of time to create massive wealth results, career results, personal results, and boundaries, results in her boundaries. So we don't need to go on a week long, sabbatical to figure out and find things. It can start with 5 minutes a day if that's all you have. So we thank you so much, Jenna, and thank you, viewers, for listening today. I encourage you to click on the link below to upgrade to the VIP level and get more of what all of these amazing women have to say and have to share with you, because they are here to empower you, to help you redefine your success. So success on your terms, and that's ultimately going to make your life in a such a rewarding, you'll probably do things that you've never imagined that you could do before. So anyway, thank you so much, Jenna. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, you're such this gentle powerhouse. When you think of gentle is gentle, but powerhouse results and just the influence that you have. So thanks for
thank you.
sharing who you are.
And you're just wonderful. I so appreciate you.
Oh, thanks so much, Jenna. All right. Take care, ladies. Take care, everyone.